Hello friends, I am Chevy. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? Hope it's all great and wonderful and fantastic. And today we're going to talk about my newest prototype, my new project, which has just engrossed me for the last week. And I'm currently calling it Iron Barons. Originally, this deck of cards says Steam Barons. I realize that name has already been taken, and trying to find a train game name is actually really difficult because there's just so many of them. And I wanted it to be focused on the Barons because it's a two-player game and it's really about head-to-head competition with another, magnate of the iron steam rail age. So Iron Barons is the current prototype name. Will it maintain that name? Probably not. Don't know. Doesn't matter. And it is set in a fantasy world. It's not necessarily, the map is not designed to be any one particular place because, the main reason is I needed to have a lot of difficult terrain. So if you know anything about train games, there's typically like wide open areas in the, Midwest, and then there's mountains. And mountains are sometimes called difficult terrain. And the concept is, you have to, it slows the company down building because they have to dig through a mountain or level a mountain. And it usually costs additional money, and it usually means that only one train can be in a given spot. Because of the way this particular game plays, I didn't want to have all of those restrictions on difficult terrain. I just wanted them to make them, it basically ends your turn. And I'll explain that in a second. And because the board is so tight, and it's a two-player back and forth where you're both going to be playing 5 train companies, I needed to make sure this board didn't become too cluttered. So I added a lot of difficult terrain to slow things down and to make choices difficult. Because, unlike most train games, this is card-driven. It's card-driven by a deck of cards that have pictograms on them that tell you how to place trains on your turn. So on your turn, you're going to take a share certificate. There are 5 train companies that you can take share certificates from, 2 that are rare, 2 that are less rare, and 1 that is, there's a lot of. And you take a share certificate, and then you place trains according to the card that you played. You pick a spot on the board that has a train of that color, and you play the card, and you build trains. And this is the mechanism that really got me excited about the game, because if you've ever tried to play a train game 2-player, it works. Like, it's fine. It just, mirroring can be a problem. If you take, black share and I take black share and we both build trains, then in the end we're both getting paid the same thing, and it's really not that interesting. Whereas playing the cards being the restrictive portion of the game and the kind of randomizer that makes the way that you build tracks different than the way that I build tracks, because you can't just cherry pick a route. You have to play the cards, right? And you only have 4 of these in your hand, and so you have to choose, like, oh, I can build this guy there and that guy there, and there's difficult terrain on the board, therefore there's a ton of it that you have to kind of work around, or else you'll end your turn, you won't be able to play any more cards for the turn, and it becomes a pretty interesting decision. I limited it to 4 cards in a hand because the decision is so interesting that it becomes a little bit of paralysis. Each card can be played one of 2 ways, so you can rotate it 180 degrees if you need to. That way I cover the entire 3-space span around a train that you choose with cards. So because of the rotating cards, I limited your hand to 4 just so you're not sitting there for 10 minutes trying to puzzle out where to play. It still has trains. It has lots of little locomotives. These were provided to me by Capstone Games, awesome manufacturer of wonderful teeny tiny trains for their train games. And because it is a cube rail style game, there's cubes. So there's tiny little cubes. And what these do, even number of shares, because I want players to have an even number of turns. It's a 2-player game. And I wanted to put some sort of restriction in place for mirroring. The way this game works, unlike most of the bigger train games, is that you're not spending company money to build trains. You're playing cards to build trains. So any strenuous plays or difficult trains or water that you want to build into, you personally pay. And you personally gain money for building into a city. So there are 4 colors of cities, and they get placed out randomly on the map, and you get $3 whenever you build into a new color, right? So that was some variability. The weird part, the part that I'm tweaking and having the most difficulty writing the rules for, is I came up with this commodity market idea. And the simple explanation is, when you build into a city, if you do not have, like you personally, not the company, when you personally build trains and enter a city, if you do not have a cube on the commodities market for that color of city, you get to place your cube on the market. If nobody else has a cube there, you place it at the very topmost space. If your opponent has a cube there, you put it on the bottommost space. Or not on the bottommost, below theirs. If you both already have a cube there, then you shift the market down 1. And this symbolizes the more of these cities that become unlocked and are interconnected to each other, the less their commodities are worth, right? It devalues their commodities. And so through the course of the game, and so these commodities pay out at the dividends rounds when there's dividends given. It's like a little extra bonus. It pays 1 time per company. It doesn't pay per share or anything like that. It's just a little like 4, 3, 2, 1 extra little kick that kind of breaks up the 2-player mirroring train game feel. And it works really, really well as a balancing mechanism. That being said, M has crushed me in this game. But I think this works well as, not only does it give that little extra kick to break up the share mirroring, it also gives you a little extra incentive to build into certain colors or to prevent your opponent. Because if I am already on, say I build into a blue city and I already have a cube on the blue track, and I build into a second blue city, I don't place a cube on that track. It doesn't reduce the value. I have a monopoly, so my value gets to stay the same. So it's an incentive for me to want to build. I want to build into blue cities, not you, because I want to keep my value high, which gives me the maximum payout. So it adds an extra little layer of decision that's not game breaking. I will tell you that the game Em and I played today, I think she beat me by $140 or something like that. I think I had 401 and she had 540 something. So this little commodities market didn't come into play at all in that game. It might have, because there is an auction between rounds to determine who goes first. So maybe that extra money, whatever, could have made a difference there. But ultimately, in this particular game we played today, it didn't. And it's because I let her I didn't let her. I foolishly let her run away with one of the shares and one of the companies, and just she dominated me. So shouldn't have done that. But I'm really excited about this. This is a cool little game. This is like, I'm ready to show it. Like, I seriously feel like I could show this to a publisher right now. And I think that I could tweak on the board for a while. There's a couple of places where I want to remove some of the difficult terrain, and I could tweak the numbers a little bit. Right now, they don't really grow or shrink the way you expect them to. So maybe I can tweak the values a little bit and help make them make a little bit more sense. But I'm happy. I'm really happy with it. I think it works really well. So we need to play test it some more and see what we think. And I need to figure out how to write the rules, because this commodities market, I think it's an interesting mechanic. It's just a very difficult thing to write the rules for. And I find that I'm saying a lot about different colored cities, and I don't feel like that reads well in the rule book. So I'll figure that out. But there it is. A simple little 2-player train game that feels much bigger than it is, and I think that's the important part. I think for a solid feeling train game, there needs to be impactful decisions, and I think there definitely are. But it's also fun. That's all I have for you today. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. I have somebody who's going to help me work on a Tabletop Simulator mod for this, so maybe we'll be able to play it on Tabletop Simulator. John, I know you're watching this. I have attempted to learn Screen Top, and it just seems difficult. and I don't know that I can do some of the things that this game needs on there. So if you want to help with that, maybe we can do it on there instead of tabletop. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word that you should know to sound smart is the last word in the G's, and it is gyrating, an adjective meaning of a circular or spiral pattern. When he first appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show, Elvis Presley's gyrating hips during his acts caused quite a stir. Gyrating, G-Y-R-A-T-I-N-G. I think that's what happened the other day when I turned on the orbital sander by accident at the start of the show. A little bit of gyration from both it and me.